I was 16 when this happened. My parents had just started letting me drive, and they trusted me enough to be home alone at night. We lived in a decent suburb, quiet, a little boring, but safe. The kind of place where everyone knows everyone. And the biggest drama is someone's dog getting out. Our house sat near the end of a cul-de-sac, surrounded by tall oak trees and cookie-cutter lawns. Nothing about our street felt threatening until that night. It was a Friday, sometime in late October, I remember, because there were still a few Halloween decorations on people's porches, and the air had that crisp bite to it. My parents were out of town for the weekend visiting my aunt, and I'd convinced them to let me stay home. I told them I had too much homework. That was a lie. I just wanted the house to myself, play video games, eat junk food, maybe invite a friend over, but my friend bailed at the last minute, so it ended up just being me, the TV, and a leftover meat lover's pizza. I spent most of the evening on the couch, watching old zombie movies and scrolling through my phone. Nothing weird, just a normal, quiet night around 10:45. I paused the movie to take out the trash. I remember the time because I glanced at the microwave clock in the kitchen. I tied up the bag, slid into my flip-flops, and walked it out to the bin by the side of the garage. Our driveway's long and kind of curved, so when I came back around the corner, I could see the street from the side of the house. That's when I saw him there. Was a man standing at the edge of our driveway, just standing perfectly still, facing the house at first. I thought maybe it was a neighbor, but the way he was positioned, right under the flickering streetlight at the end of our cul-de-sac, it didn't feel right. He wasn't moving, not even a shift in weight, just standing there with his hands in his coat pockets and his head tilted slightly down, like he was looking at the ground, but I could tell he was watching the house. Watching me didn't say anything. I didn't want to make it a thing if it wasn't. Maybe he was lost. Maybe he was drunk. I ducked back inside, locked the door, and turned off the front porch light. Then I watched from the upstairs hallway window. He didn't move for almost 10 minutes. He stood there, just this tall figure at the edge of the drive. I couldn't make out his face, but something about the way he held himself made my stomach twist. I thought about calling the cops, but he wasn't doing anything illegal technically, just standing there. I went back downstairs and tried to ignore it. Turned on another movie, even turned the volume up to drown out my nerves, but every 10 minutes or so, I checked the window and he was still there. At some point, I started thinking maybe he was gone, maybe he left and I just missed it. But at exactly midnight, I remember because the movie had just ended, the doorbell rang. I froze. I didn't answer. I didn't even move. Then it rang again and again, 3 short rings. One after the other, I slowly crept to the peephole and looked out. The man was standing directly on the porch, now closer than anyone should be. He was staring right at the door. No expression, no movement. I backed away slowly and went upstairs to my bedroom. I locked the door and grabbed the baseball bat I kept under the bed. I tried calling my parents, but the call went straight to voicemail. I texted them. I texted my friend. I even texted my neighbor down the street, but no one replied. I sat on my bed in the dark, trying to hear if he was still there. That's when I heard Ida tap, just one soft tap against the upstairs window, my bedroom window. I spun around. The curtains were drawn, but I saw the silhouette of a head pressed against the glass. I stopped breathing. The house was 2 stories tall. There was no balcony, no tree close enough to climb. There was no way for someone to be at that window. The tapping started again, slow, deliberate, spaced out tap, tap, tap. I backed into the corner of the room and called 911. I whispered everything as quickly as I could to the dispatcher. She stayed on the line with me, told me officers were en route, told me to stay calm. I didn't respond. I was too focused on the shadow. Then it vanished. No sound, no footsteps, just gone. A few minutes later, the police showed up. 2 officers walked the property. They didn't find anyone, but they did find something smudge as greasy palm prints on the window glass, way too high for someone to reach without a ladder. They also found partial footprints in the flower bed beneath the window, deep, like someone had jumped down from above. The weirdest part, there were no footprints leading up to the porch or down the driveway, just away, as if the man had only existed when he wanted to be seen. The cops gave me a long talk, wrote a report, and left. I didn't sleep that night. I didn't sleep much. For weeks, to be honest. My parents installed cameras the next day. Motion lights too. We never saw him again, but I still remember that face. Not because I ever saw it clearly, but because I felt it watching me right through the window, like he was already inside before I ever opened the door. This happened when I was 18. My best friend Jay and I went on a weekend camping trip just before college started. We wanted one last real adventure before the real world kicked in. We picked a spot near a state park in Tennessee. Off-grid, no other. Campers around, nothing but us, some trees, and a fire pit. We brought food, our sleeping bags, a Bluetooth speaker, and not much else, just two guys roughing it in the woods for 2 nights. The first day was chill. We set up our little pop-up tent near a clearing and hiked around for a while. We saw some deer, took pictures of a weird abandoned shed about half a mile out, then came back before sunset. It was dead quiet in those woods once it got dark. No crickets, no wind, just total silence. I remember thinking how strange that was. We made dinner and sat by the fire talking about dumb stuff, movies, girls, the usual around 11:30. We both decided to crash. I had a little trouble falling asleep. It wasn't fear or anything, just that weird forced silence messing with me. At some point, I finally dozed off. He woke up, maybe an hour later, to the faint sound of sticks cracking, not loud, just steady, like someone was walking around the campsite. I stayed still for a second, trying to tell myself it was a raccoon or a deer, but then I heard breathing. Human breathing. Jay was asleep next to me, mouth open and snoring, but this was coming from outside the tent. Slow, heavy inhales, and closer than I wanted to admit. Then came the worst part of voice whispering. I couldn't make out the words at first. It was like someone was mumbling just outside the fabric. Then I caught a few, "You don't belong here." I stopped breathing. I felt like if I moved, the tent would collapse around me. Then I heard what sounded like a finger run slowly alongside of the tent, just dragging down the nylon wall. It made the whole thing ripple. Jay woke up and asked what that was. I slapped my hand over his mouth. We stayed like that, totally still, for what felt like an hour. Eventually, the footsteps faded, the voice stopped, the breathing went quiet, but we didn't sleep. We just lay there, eyes wide, waiting for something else to happen, and something did around 4 a.m. We both heard it, this strange low rattling sound. At first, we thought it was the wind finally picking up, but then we realized it was coming from beneath us, from under the ground. It was faint, like chains dragging across wood, but rhythmic, measured, almost like someone was pacing beneath the dirt. Jay whispered, "Is there a basement under the woods?" I didn't have an answer. I was too busy trying not to pass out right before dawn. Everything just stopped. No noise, no wind, not even birds. Just this choking silence that somehow felt worse than anything else. When the sun finally came up, we bolted out of the tent. There were bare footprints in the dirt, human, no shoes, just a single set walking in a full circle around our camp and leading into the woods. But there was more on the back of our tent. Scratched faintly into the fabric were words: "Next time, don't ignore me." We packed up in record time, but before we left, Jay made the mistake of looking back at the tree line. His whole face went pale. He just said, "Dude, someone's watching you, see?" Turned around. There was a figure, tall, still standing between the trees. You couldn't make out a face. It looked like it was wearing some kind of old, tattered cloth, but I swear I saw it tilt its head. It was the same posture we saw at the shed. when we reached the park ranger's office and told him what happened. He didn't even blink, just said people don't go out there alone for a reason. He wouldn't elaborate when we asked about the shed. He looked even more serious, said it had been abandoned since the 70s. Something about a missing hiker and a family that used to live out there. He told us to delete the photos we took. We never went camping again, and Jay still swears he hears that whisper sometimes when he's trying to fall asleep. This happened during my sophomore year of college. I was renting a small 2-bedroom house off campus with one of my classmates. Dylan, he was cool, kept to himself, but we both liked quiet, so it worked. The house had this long, narrow backyard that ended with a wooden fence and a sliding glass door that opened into the kitchen. It faced the back porch, and beyond that, just trees. We never had issues until one week in February. It started one random night while Dylan was at his girlfriend's. I had the place to myself. It was almost midnight. I was in the kitchen doing dishes when I heard something tap on the glass knock. I froze and looked up. There was a girl standing there. She was maybe in her early 20s, barefoot, wearing a torn hoodie and leggings. She had long, tangled black hair. Her head was tilted slightly, and she was just staring at me. Couldn't see her eyes clearly. It was dark, and the porch light was off, but I could tell she was looking through me. Didn't move. She didn't either. Just that soft tap again, this time from her fingernail against the glass. I backed away, grabbed my phone, and dialed 911. I told them there was someone outside who looked like she needed help, but wouldn't speak. They told me to stay inside and wait for the police. A few minutes later, I looked again. She was gone when the cops arrived. We checked the yard. No footprints, no sign of anyone. They said maybe she was homeless, maybe on drugs, and wandered offy. Locked every window and door that night. Thought it was over. Next night, same time, same girl, but now she was closer. Her forehead was pressed against the glass. She was breathing hard enough to fog it up, and this time, she was smiling wide. Too wide I didn't even call the cops again. I just shut the blinds and slept in my locked room. It kept happening for 4 nights, always at midnight, always the same expression. Sometimes she would knock, sometimes she would wave. One night, she scratched something into the glass with her nail. It just said, "Let Mame Eni," started sleeping at my girlfriend's place. Dylan didn't believe me until he saw her himself. She showed up when he was home alone. He called me in a panic, said she just stood there staring for half an hour before walking away. We installed motion lights and cameras after that. And just like that, she stopped coming. Weeks passed. One night, I finally watched the camera footage for fun, just to see if she ever came back. She had multiple times. She had stood just out of frame in the dark by the tree line watching for hours, sometimes until 3 or 4 in the morning, just standing. We moved out at the end of the semester, but here's where it gets worse. A few weeks after we moved, Dylan sent me a picture. It was a screenshot from a news article. A girl's face, same tangled black hair, same blank expression. She'd been found dead in the woods behind that neighborhood. But the part that made my chest tighten, she'd been dead for over 6 months. The police thought she had gotten lost while hiking and died from exposure, except her body wasn't buried or hidden. It was upright, just standing leaning against a tree, as if someone had posed it that way the date they estimated she died. August. We moved in September. Dylan and I stopped talking after that. Not out of hate, just out of silence. Like we didn't know how to process what happened, but even now, sometimes when I can't sleep, I'll think back to that blurry image I saved from the camera, and I swear, every time I look at it, their smile gets wider.